Hi everyone, welcome back to the Leather Apron podcast. I'm Kyle.
Me? Oh, I'm Reese.
I'm Alice.
I'm Richard.
Yeah, Richard's our camera person, our beloved psychopath of Leather Apron Productions.
Yeah.
Don't.
Who has a nasty habit of picking up the mic whenever he wants to say something.
Don't touch it.
So overly dramatic.
I'm going to put a little sticker on. Richard,
He's
don't.
He came prepared. He was watching all the interviews with John Light.
Yeah.
He's ready to go. So today, we're talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
It's kind of like one of those podcasts where they announce the title and the title sequence comes up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is brought to you by...
Sequel to the prequel coming soon out now.
That's the one. I did not expect you to say that.
Have to mention it.
It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Tarantino's 9th outing as writer-director. General consensus as we go around the room. Richard, you're new. What did you think?
I left the cinema kind of going, I mean, it was Tarantino, so obviously you're going to be like, that was really good. But I was thinking about it last night, I was like, I think that might be one of my personal favourites of his, and maybe his best. And there is reasoning for it. Is that something I say now, or are we all going around saying something?
Just go around, yeah.
Yeah.
Go around, right.
Overall.
Consensus.
Yeah, I thought it was okay.
Just okay.
Yeah, I thought, overall as a film, it was good, but the plot was, the main thing that was the problem for me.
Alice?
I thought it was very good. Very funny, compelling story, in my opinion. Good characters. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I agree with most of what's been brought to the attention of the group. Hughie.
What's it that you don't agree with?
The judge.
I don't agree with Reese's consensus. So I guess we'll start with negative. What didn't you like, Reese?
Just thought it was rather... I think the ending to conflicts were rather bland.
There was conflict.
There was the car one where he was fix the car.
Yeah.
And then he just drove off.
Yeah, they did
It was
build.
very...
After beating somebody up.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
Should
gonna
we put a
crash.
spoiler warning at the beginning of this?
No.
It's too late now.
It's too late. Okay.
I mean,
If you haven't seen it by now, it's on you.
at the same
It's on you.
same time with that, I mean, I don't really know what we would have seen that we wouldn't have already known. I mean, we saw him beat up Bruce Lee, Chris Pratt.
Brad Pitt.
That's the one.
Chris Pratt.
Saw him beat up Bruce Lee, which kind of that was there on purpose to just kind of be like, this guy knows what he's doing. So I mean, I don't think it would have done anything to the story.
Yeah.
It
was more of just for... It would have been cool to see how Quentin Tarantino deals with that sort of conflict.
That's another thing to sort of bring up, is there was significantly less violence in this one.
That's why I really liked it. I liked his violence in his other films, but I think him not having as much violence is, I don't know. I
Nice
think,
to see a change.
Yeah, I think a lot of people expect to see crazy amounts of violence, and I think when you look at news articles, they always complain about the violence in films.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just a
Things.
huge middle finger to that one interviewer asking about all the violence. I'm
Yeah,
shutting your
potentially,
butt down.
yeah. Literally, yeah. I mean, I think that was more focus on story and characters and.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just highlights how good he is at just writing human relationships. Because the relationship between Cliff and Rick was very wholesome, very sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you brought up an interesting point, Alice, when we watched it, was that the
demon eyes.
The reminder.
The toxic masculinity was completely avoided.
Yeah, there wasn't much of it. Leonardo DiCaprio cried a lot during that film.
Yeah.
Don't cry in front of the Mexicans.
Especially, something that was based in the 60s, where, toxic masculinity would have been fraught. But, it was interesting to sort of see that sort of bromancy dynamic play out in an era that wouldn't really have been too welcoming to something like that.
Well, I thought DiCaprio's performance was very... It was a really good insight into the anxieties and insecurities of actors, especially at such a higher level as well.
I mean, it's probably even worse now, given, I mean, in the 60s, obviously, there were all these big productions, but it's even bigger now.
With social media.
It's social media, there's now, you know, kids half our age that are, you know, have such big social media
Followings.
presence and followings and stuff.
More
It's
successful than we will ever be. Millie Bobby Brown, I'm looking at you.
yeah. It's like, I think that there's one, I think not Will, the one who has a relationship with Eleven in Stranger Things. Finn Wolf, yeah. I think he was making his way to a hotel, and obviously all these fans are outside wanting to speak to him, and he was just like, no, I don't want to.
Leave me alone.
But then
I'm 12.
yeah, exactly. He got so much shit on social media, like, he didn't come and meet your fans and stuff. And I think it was Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones that said, he's 12 years old.
Yeah.
You're being, he's being mobbed every day of his life till he dies. Is going to be out in public.
That's usually why younger actors tend to pack it in after a while. And the first person for me that comes to mind is the guy that played the younger Anakin in the first prequel movie. Yeah.
And Jar Jar Binks in that.
And we've gone off.
What a young actor. Yeah.
That animated squid-looking
And
bastard.
Macaulay, what's his face from?
Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah.
Cut short of that.
Yeah.
Award-winning actor.
So what were your quarrels with it, Reese? Because out of us four, you seem the only one that's not up the movie's ass.
I mean, are you a fan of Tarantino in general? Have you seen much of his work?
Yeah, I've seen Pulp Fiction.
Done.
I think
That's
my
it. That's all.
That's all you need.
I think probably my favourite was Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
I think
Gormy.
that had, just a good overall film for me. I think it was more. This one was more up like for like the smart individuals that have like more insight into the industry, and if you didn't really get a inside joke or something, then it wouldn't have been.
It was like the point that stood out for me of thinking about that was when Cliff asked, "Did you speak to the guy who gaffs this thing?"
Yeah.
If you don't know what a gaffer is,
Yeah.
you kind of straight over the head.
Yeah. And watching it first time for me, I just didn't get much of the Manson stuff. I didn't get much of it. So
You have to have some kind of already established knowledge on the Manson
because
family.
they didn't specifically, or they very subtly.
I can see why people would have missed it.
Yeah, but at the same time, they tried to advertise it as Tarantino's Manson movie.
I did look up the Manson side of it when I got home, because I was kind of like, I thought there was going to be more. He had one scene and he might have been in a car in the background, but then it turns out quite a lot of his scenes were just cut from the film. I don't know if that was to do with timings or, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the same guy playing Manson in this film is playing Manson in Mindhunter, and that's came out 2 days ago. So I don't know if there's a clash there, but
who knows?
I have no idea.
I mean, another thing that I thought was kind of silly was like the uproar of Sharon Tate not having many lines that was brought to the attention of the panel at some Q&A, that Margot Robbie didn't have much screen time or many lines, and I thought she
wasn't a important or like main character really.
Well, I thought it was really good of her, like how hard it has to be to convince an audience of your role if you haven't got many lines. But the way I put it in my review, filmtalk.co.uk.
Who said you could plug that?
I said I could.
You
plug.
shameless self-promoter.
Anyway, there was. Don't you do it, Rich? Don't blow out the levels.
pretentious prick.
There was a sense for me anyway of impending doom every time she was on screen, because if you know the Manson family, you know she's the one they done in while pregnant. So seeing her happy, reflecting on her own work and people enjoying her work, just living for like basically the Summer of Love and all that jazz, it was sad.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I know it's coming.
You know, all the scenes where I thought I saw the red car Manson has were only in her scenes in the background of shots, and I was going, okay, what's going to happen here then?
Interesting.
Because I don't know much about Manson at all.
Well,
It's very interesting.
Other than,
he's quite tame in comparison to other serial killers.
Yeah.
But I
Which
think
is a
the,
strange
the
thing to
cult
say.
following he has from then is kind of carried on,
Yeah.
so to speak. But
That sort of theme you said about impending doom was sort of included in all of the characters, though, because
Yeah.
even with Cliff and Rick, you sort of, especially towards the end of the movie, you sort of realise their time was sort of up.
Yeah.
Like, Rick wouldn't really have much of a career after he did those spaghetti westerns, and
Yeah.
if Rick didn't have a career, then Cliff definitely didn't have one.
Yeah.
I think that theme of, as you said, impending doom sort of followed all the characters throughout the entire
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, and it was just sort of interesting to see how each one handled it.
Yeah.
But then it's kind of weird because they all had something to deal with except Sharon Tate, really. It's like rising star sort of thing. I did see on second viewing there was a lot of parallels of like they'd show Sharon Tate enjoying like the praise of being an actress, and then Rick like panicking in his trailer.
that was such a great scene.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Mumbling your lines. Let no Tim went.
Well, she was just an incredibly visual character. Like, there wasn't
Yeah.
much to her in her lines, but in terms of visually, you knew exactly who she was, and you knew exactly
How she behaved.
how she behaved and how she was feeling. And in sort of going back to the fact she didn't have many lines, I think that kind of ties in with the position of women in Hollywood in the 60s.
Also
Nobody really cared what they had to say,
As long as they look good.
as long as they looked nice,
Yeah.
which is kind of what Margot Robbie's role was in this.
Yeah.
She looked nice and she played the part very well. She didn't really have much to say, though.
If anyone who worked on this feature is listening, I am so disappointed you gave them such dirty feet.
Oh, yeah, what it lacked
There we
in
go.
violence,
There's
it made up
the,
for in feet.
the line into the weird foot fetish.
Oh yeah.
We had to
Tarantino.
talk. There was a lot of them.
There was a lot of
Well, the
dirty
Manson,
feet.
the Manson family, sure they were hippies.
Yeah, why
Fucking
did
idiots.
Sharon Tate have dirty feet? Like, why? She was Sharon Tate. Why? I can understand the Manson family, but why Sharon Tate?
Maybe she is part of it.
That's the bit they cut.
I mean, it could be this entire film is a complete reimagining of it.
Yeah, she was
in,
in on it.
in a similar way to Inglourious Bastards is a retelling of World War II. But.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, I think the story was much grander than like what was shown.
Yeah.
There was a lot of other things to it, and it may have been cut in the editing, or I feel like there was a lot of decisions to be made in the edit, and maybe there's going to be a longer one. I don't know.
I think whatever we saw on screen was therefore Tarantino wanted us to see. Like everything, like he comes across as one of those filmmakers that he does everything with reason, and he won't put anything out unless it's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I think out of all the directors out there and all the TV studios, he makes films like that don't necessarily have an agenda of trying to make as much money. He just makes films because he loves making films, and it shows because he's very good at doing it.
Yeah.
I have a question for the group. I saw an article that said, I don't know if it was an article or review or whatever, but it said that Cliff and Rick, DiCaprio and Brad Pitt were like the best on-screen duo for Tarantino since Pulp Fiction. What do people think of that? Because I completely disagree with that.
I preferred this to Pulp Fiction anyway.
I didn't like Pulp Fiction when I saw it.
So I'd
I
have to
prefer
say
Pulp Fiction.
I prefer Rick and Cliff, but that's just because I'm not the biggest fan of Pulp Fiction
Yeah, I agree
anyway.
there. I think the one in Django I think is better.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
Schultz and Django.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at it, I was like John Travolta and Sam Jackson sort of back and forth about hamburgers and killing the people in the room. Like, it's just like they had a lot more sort of like comedy bounce off of each other, whereas with Rick and Cliff, like it was more emotional support and,
Yeah.
and dealing with just day-to-day life as these like ever-growing dinosaurs in an age where the new people were rising. So it was a good duo by all means. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great, and Brad Pitt in comedy roles is one of the best
It's good
things.
to see Brad Pitt in a decent movie on the big screen.
Yeah, exactly. So like I just thought that in terms of being the next Sam Jackson and John Travolta, I thought that was wrong. Not wrong, but like I disagree.
It's sort of like comparing apples and oranges.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, each film's it's so different, and
Yeah.
it's you just can't.
You want completely different things out of the duo.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not right to compare.
No.
But I do have to wonder with the whole Pulp Fiction thing, how much of that is to do with how much of a classic Pulp Fiction is.
Also true.
Like how much
Nostalgia.
how many, there'll never be another. I can't remember their names. What are their
Jules
names?
Winfried and Vincent Vega.
Yeah. How much of that is to do with how much people love Pulp Fiction, and how much is to do with how much
Well,
and how effective that duo is.
Well, I kind of feel like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood can be considered the Pulp Fiction for a next generation in the sense that the plot isn't like this grand world-ending event, but like something that's purely character-driven and everyone's stories kind of overlap.
Yeah.
It's just taken a few moments from these characters' lives in this real world and just here's a bit of it. What do you think?
Yeah.
Rather
Exactly.
than, as you had a big grandiose Middle Earth quest.
What I found interesting was how the title Once Upon a Time in Hollywood sort of reflects a fantasy element to it, and looking at those fantasy elements and what plays out in the film, i.e. the use of narration to progress the story, was interesting. The ending being very much bad guy vanquishes foes and gets the girl to an extent. Like it was very, very much a classic Once Upon a Time tale. Thoughts?
I think that makes sense.
That does make sense, yeah.
Great, we're done.
Well,
I think there is definitely a fantasy element to it, because the film follows these people playing other characters in another time, place, or world.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of helps reinforce what you said there.
Definitely, with the ending being a complete and utter fictionalization of what would have happened. I mean,
what could have been?
Yeah, exactly. Because like it almost like tips its toes on the verge of becoming a documentary of where things were going, and then at the last minute reminds you through glorious violence that it's a fiction and it's Tarantino that's got you watching.
Yeah.
They just have to sort of remind you at the end, by the way, this is a Tarantino movie.
Yeah.
Stomps on throat.
We've got to have some violence in here and some blood. And
I mean, even if there was no violence in it, I wouldn't rate it any less than I do now.
no, definitely not, because I enjoyed it
Yeah.
just as
I think
much.
this was the first Tarantino film I've seen in a cinema, and I think I've only seen maybe Django and Hateful Eight, where there was never a moment where I went, okay, it's kind of dragging on a bit. I didn't. The pace of it was just very seamless from beginning to end, even though it's only 3 hours long.
Kept you hooked.
Yeah, I mean, I was.
I felt dragged.
There it is.
when he came out of the Manson thing, I was like, has this really gone anywhere?
Yeah.
Like, it felt they would, and I mean, it is a telling of just normal life, and but there was just very little progression in character development.
That scene was kind of thing.
Well, you take it looking at it from that perspective, like that moment on the Manson family ranch literally didn't pay off until 6 months down the line, and the only reason that it sort of took place was so that Brad Pitt could go, "Oh, I remember you, Spawn Ranch."
That's literally the only reason it was in there.
Yeah, more or less.
I don't know. I kind of feel like there's, I don't know, something more with the interaction between Pitt's character and the old blind man. I don't know.
Yeah.
George.
Yeah, I feel like maybe on some other viewings there might be something. I feel like there's something more significant with that scene than maybe I picked up first time round.
Yeah.
Because in again typical Tarantino fashion, he writes dialogue that's. He has a very unique way of
telling.
Yeah,
Like the way I looked at it was, and you pointed it out, is like we'd watch Pulp Fiction, you'd be like, what are they saying?
Yeah.
And then what I figured out was that his dialogue it'll be a bunch of just random talk about what's going on, and then
one thing.
the one thing you need to know about what's progressing the story is right at the end of the conversation,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
I feel like that scene also, or that whole sort of sequence with him and that girl, I can't remember her name.
Pussycat.
Yes.
Yeah. We love
Pussy,
pussy.
yes, we do.
I think it was kind of there to sort of show how Cliff isn't a complete scumbag, because this is a guy who's pretty much, living off of his best friend. He killed his wife, allegedly. He doesn't have much of a life to speak of. The fact that he doesn't have sex with this clearly underage girl, I think it kind of serves to show, okay, he's not an utter scumbag.
I wouldn't even say he's a nutter. I mean, yeah,
He's
we
a
don't
bit
know,
of a
we don't know if he
scumbag.
killed his wife. I mean, you could say he's living off his friend,
Well, the
but
thing
at
is
the same
based-
time, they.
Well, the way that he had that sort of, Rick got him that job and then he screwed it all up by beating the shit out of Bruce Lee.
Let me just say, nobody bit the shit out of Bruce.
It makes him a little bit of a scumbag, in my
That's
opinion.
okay, fair enough.
I mean, I would never consider him a scumbag just because of how charming the performance is and everything he kind of does. There doesn't seem malicious intent to it. He's not out to do anyone else over. I don't really necessarily agree with that because he's more of a leech. But even then, he said, like, he's okay with, what was the quote? It was like, hell, I like hanging around when you're away and that, so.
I just found it really scummy that Rick obviously, had to talk that guy around to get him that job, and then he completely nobody made him do that. Nobody made him beat up the lead actor and ruin that lady's car. He did that.
I think that something I noticed, which I think might have been what started that, is something about I think Rick mentioned that his stuntman is a former soldier, so he's
war hero.
So he's clearly, he's been through some shit, and then Bruce Lee is kind of there bigging himself up, saying, "Oh, I can kill people. I've done this. I've done that." And he's like, "No, you're a kid. I've actually fought in a fucking war. Let's see who's better, the old man or the little or the younger guy kind of thing." So I see it's more trying to teach him a lesson.
That's really interesting how one throwaway line of he's a war hero brings out so much subtext.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, and I think that's a testament to Tarantino's work.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I don't think you see it a bit. I mean, he's a very mysterious character as well because he didn't. I mean, again, he was an asset, but he didn't really show much remorse for the people.
No, he just it's also like that part. There's a part where he comes out of the house at that ranch, and he's sort of ready to fight someone. It's almost like he's got this repressed urge to fight. Is what I felt. That there was I can't remember what it was. It was a certain moment where it felt to me that he was ready.
Oh, because he was coming out of the house expecting to see all of the girls there, waiting for him, and it was just her.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyway,
I think that's...
there was definitely zero remorse.
Because he could have stopped. I think the dog attacked the geezer with the gun, and he could have stopped there, but instead he went no, stomp on the head. I mean, part of me is kind of like Tarantino just slipped in because it's Tarantino, but when you look at it from a character psychology.
I'd also like to take this time to say that pit bulls aren't inherently dangerous before anyone starts thinking that because of this movie.
It's how they're trained.
Yeah, exactly, Reese gets it.
Nature, not nurture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
the other way.
Fuck's sake.
God damn it.
Such a hero thing to say, and I'm like, nope, I'm going to ruin it for everyone.
What have you got to say, Reese? You're kind of
Um,
on the quiet side over there.
I'm just trying to think.
He has no defense.
I'm gonna probably, but whatever. I think a lot of it is, the problem with it is Quentin Tarantino being too far up his own ass.
That's fair.
Oh God.
It is. For me, it's just, he needs that violence in there. He needs that,
Doesn't this film dispute that, though? Because there's so little violence in this one.
Yeah, but
though.
he has to have it at the end, right? So he's just
true,
I'm
but
Quentin Tarantino. I must have feet. I must have violence. I must have characters that are.
But you could say that's down to his style in the way because I think each director kind of
When it comes down to his writing as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When you look at hundreds of other directors out there, and you kind of go, oh, when you think, so you could think, trying to think of, see, I can't even think of another director, but if I was to think, say, Tarantino, you'd instantly think manky feet, violence, great dialogue, great. It's very
Makes him like an auteur director.
trademark to him and the way he makes films, and makes him stand out, I guess. But
I guess it's more about his thought process and how he makes it. Because if he's like, trying to think of it, but like, oh fuck, I've lost.
I guess, I think, yeah, I guess all I'd maybe add to it is, I guess, at least with his films and the violence, there's somewhat of a story, purpose, and a reason behind it, other than just having blood and gore for the sake of just keeping audiences
there was
engaged.
In screenwriting, one of our lecturers said that it's like, oh yeah, it's all well and good having like a helicopter smash into the side of a building, but there's no purpose for it and you don't really care. Whereas if you put like an animal in it, suddenly you care. It's about having a rhyme to reason and making it worth something rather than just having it for the sake of having it.
I think the first John Wick's probably a great example. Has everyone seen that here? Or?
I don't think Reese has.
John Wick, okay.
You've seen the third one though.
Oh yeah.
Skip straight to the third one. You know.
So I mean, I won't say what happens at the beginning, but something happened.
I've seen the beginning, sort of. Yeah. What is it? Is it when the people come in the house?
Yeah, it's basically when they kill his dog.
Yeah. So you look at the reasoning why
why
the dog's there. It's because his wife left it as sort of as a parting gift in her will. They kill the dog, so now everything that happens after that, the reasoning behind the violence from John onto the Russian mob, you can get behind it.
It's a very simple way of getting people to dislike a bad guy, and you can't argue it because it's true. If someone killed a dog, you'd instantly want.
It's funny actually. I think it was in another podcast. The directors kind of said, "Yeah, we originally had it. They're going to kill a baby."
Yeah.
Sorry. It was easier writing them kicking a baby to death than it was a dog. The studio had a problem with the puppy because humans just
they react more because they're they don't grow up to be teenagers.
Yeah.
Dogs are always they've always been like man's best friend and all that. But yeah, I think the thing that it sort of went too far pretentious for me.
Okay.
And
in what sense?
There was a lot of subtle history background things for the characters.
Oh, like
if
the
you
Great
weren't
Escape
paying
moment.
If you weren't paying attention to the dialogue, then it became like just
what I miss.
What I miss, or you wouldn't have much of a connection to story.
If you want like a movie person, like somebody who's watched like a few westerns or even The Great Escape, it's going to be very hard to enjoy this.
Well, that Great Escape moment, I kind of went over my head because I've never seen it.
Yeah, I have, and I was like, oh my god, they done this and done that.
That's the thing. There were a lot of like hints to sort of like old timey Hollywood, which if you're a film person is.
I think Tarantino's team is a fan of that period anyway. So if anything, this is like a love letter to those to that period.
Well, you've done a great job of creating 1969 Hollywood.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And there was some great moments, like using the actual movie camera as the camera being filmed on set. Like that was probably my favourite part of it. Just how, because normally you just see the guy.
Guy behind the camera, using the actual camera.
Yeah,
that kept people kind of engaged with what was going on.
Yeah. But I found it very similar to that Citizen Kane. No, not Citizen Kane. Orson, his director. The director.
Orson Welles.
Yeah, he made like a film but wasn't finally made, and it was done on Netflix. Like, and it was also very inside the industry, and it had it was like, is it a documentary or is it a fiction? Like the blurring of boundaries and all that. There was like a movie star in it.
Well, when me and Alice went to see Once Upon a Time, like the first day, And we were like, are we like the youngest people in this audience? Because there were so many like older people, so kind of strange today that obviously like a younger person who thinks, oh, I like Brad Pitt or I like Leonardo DiCaprio going to see this movie.
They're not going to know what the hell is going on.
I remember when I saw Hateful Eight, I didn't really know what to expect. I think I'd seen Django, nothing else until then. And then went in and went, holy shit, there's a lot of old dudes in here. And that they were, I mean, despite what media said, they absolutely loved the violence. I mean, I was there going, they were like, they wanted more. They were very bloodthirsty.
I think I don't want to be one of those people that says like back in my day, but like anybody born like past 2003, I don't think is gonna go and see this movie.
It's probably because they're too young to get over the age rating. But yeah, no, I don't think Roadman Steve is really gonna be down.
Which
with this one.
I sort of disagree with that idea of it being the new Pulp Fiction, because if like the next generation aren't really gonna understand it,
that's also true. Yeah,
then they're not gonna see it.
Yeah, but I guess some people don't really understand Pulp Fiction because of the whole briefcase thing, and some people dislike it because of the reason that you never find out what's in the briefcase.
Yeah, maybe it's more up for debate rather than if it's like straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a finite reason why I'm not a massive fan of Pulp Fiction.
I mean, I thought it was just overhyped. I mean, I can appreciate
definitely, yeah.
I can appreciate like everything about it, but I did kind of walk away going, I mean, I've seen that done before, but that might be, I mean, had I seen the film when it came out, in the way the story is told, you know, with the flashbacks and these characters crossing paths, I might have been like, that was quite something, but because of how popular that film is, other people have replicated it, so it's kind of become a bit stale.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, I watched Reservoir Dogs for the first time, and I was like, eh.
Yeah, I've got that one. I haven't seen that one.
It's just like I was like, oh, I was expecting a lot more like tension, and it kind of wasn't for me anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
With like, because of how conflicts were resolved previously, the ending scene, I was like, there was no tension with are they going to die or not or anything like that.
I felt tension. I really didn't want Brad Pitt to die. I was like,
it would have been a good.
Any tension that was there was immediately gone when Leonardo DiCaprio went and got the flamethrower.
Yeah.
Then it was like, okay, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine.
I thought maybe they could have played on him being on acid more.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
like,
was just
to be
like,
actually on acid
it was
while
just like
fighting.
a little bit of a woozy moment and then sort of just being a little bit weird with tech. There wasn't much.
That's why I thought he was actually going to die or get hurt, because he was on acid. But I see your point. He kind of just...
There was no real need for like the acid cigarette.
It was just more of just a comedy
throwaway.
But he was already drunk. So
true.
Was there any need for it really? He could have just been drunk.
Well, the thing is, it's like he walked past the car that everyone was in anyway.
I didn't recognise him. I noticed that.
So I was just like, okay, so now that you pointed out, there was kind of no reason for the acid dip cigarette.
No.
It's just there for
I guess it was to bring back a memory of the Manson girl.
It wasn't even a Manson girl that
was it not? No.
It's just not
it's
a
just
fucking hippie.
Yeah.
You're like, girl!
Does anybody else think it was a missed opportunity when Leonardo DiCaprio didn't shout, burn you hippie bastard, when he was burning up that hippie bastard?
That would have been funny.
I think Tarantino would despise that idea, being like, it's too on the nose.
I thought it was an incredibly missed opportunity, and I wanted it.
Wonderful scene, though. I was not expecting to come out, and I sort of went, oh my god, and his music went, hey! I was like, yes!
So good.
The fucking hippies, eh? But yeah.
It was a little bit of a nice moment when he's talking to Sharon Tate at the end, and it's like he doesn't really think throughout the movie that she's noticed that he lives there. And then there's that bit where she's like, "Oh, Rick Dalton." Yeah. And it's like, "Oh, she does know that he exists."
Yeah, it goes back to I think Rick's like, if I can get invited to a party, my career might be able to take off again. And it's like, oh, okay, well.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it will now.
You're sort of left with that sort of little bit of hope that things ended well for him.
Well, I was looking it up, and there was this consensus that after like the actual Manson family murders, that there was this quote that said that everyone in that time period sort of believed that 1969 ended in August. because of like how much uproar it caused and stuff like that. So that was really weird. The fact that it's like, oh, okay, so like everything's just smooth on over. The rest of the year gets to play out, sort of thing.
There was that bit towards the end of the movie where they kept narrating what the time was and where everybody was at that time.
There was a lot of time stamps, which I was.
And they got like closer together as the film started to sort of end, and that sort of built up the tension for me because they were talking about everybody in like the past tense, and I was like, oh no, someone's gonna die. I don't like it. Yeah.
Oh, I also looked it up. It wasn't Robin from Stranger Things.
It was Robin.
No, it wasn't.
It was Robin from Stranger Things.
I'm sure it wasn't.
Who?
Well, you know the girl in the Manson car at the end who is like, I forgot my knife and ran back and then drove off.
Too skinny.
Yeah,
I thought she looked like the woman from iCarly.
Which one?
The black hair.
I'm talking about that was Robin. Either that or it's somebody who looks exactly like her.
Google.
And Dakota Fanning was in that movie.
I didn't even notice it was Dakota Fanning.
It was definitely. Am I just seeing people that aren't there?
Yes.
Are you on acid? Have you smoked acid?
Please don't stop. Don't.
Yeah. Anyway, what I did find interesting though is that apparently now Tarantino wants his next movie to be a horror movie.
I was told he wanted Star Trek.
Yeah, no, he's doing Star Trek, but apparently he wants his next one to be his original one to be horror. But after seeing the tension build in the house in the Manson family farm,
oh yeah, that was a good.
Very good.
I think he'd do a great.
Yeah,
I did actually cross my mind. What would happen if Tarantino wanted to do
I
horror?
would love to see that. See what
We
he
get
does with it.
what is it? Until Dawn or
Dust
Dawn.
Till Dawn. Yeah.
Yeah, we get another one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, if it was just Until Dawn, but in a film.
Just so
That would be
everyone's
cool.
aware that's listening, Alice is genuinely looking up the cast. Once upon a time.
It was her.
Because supposedly his 10th film is going to be his last one.
I thought his 9th was. That's the thing. I was like, oh, okay.
Alice, Google voice you on the phone. How many films does he want to
Will
make?
will he stop though?
I think he wants to retire at 10. Is
Right.
what I heard.
But the thing is, if he does Star Trek, he's done more than 10.
I
Boom. Was her.
Oh. Well, then IMDb lied to me unless I was on the wrong profile.
I'm going to see if it is actually Dakota
I think he'll
Fanning.
be like
is Dakota
I think
Fanning.
he'll be
There
like
we
the
go.
Undertaker. He'll
Oh,
be
he
like,
just-
I'm retiring.
Yeah.
No, I'm back again, bitch.
I mean, I'm okay with him making more films.
Yeah.
Yes,
He's
please.
very unique.
More,
Once
please.
in a lifetime kind of guy to come around. Guy.
Yeah, I think he makes some interesting original stories.
And there's always
Yes.
like, I mean, I guess with the Marvel films, they're so constant. After a while, people get a bit fatigued. But with Tarantino, there's always hype and
Yeah.
always creates conversation around film.
I mean, I wasn't even hyped for this movie.
I think I saw one trailer and went, that looks okay. I'll probably see it because it's Tarantino. And
Exactly.
I was
ended up
hyped
absolutely
about
loving
this
it.
for like a year.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I'm very cautious when it comes to hype now because since you and me, Rich, ruined Skull Island by rewatching the trailers and being so hyped.
It wasn't even the trailer, it was the 24 TV spots they released that highlighted every single one of the fights, minus the last one, and by then I was like, fuck this, I'm out. And then the only time we actually got excited was the post-credit scene
With
which
Godzilla.
set up King of the Monsters. That was it. I mean, I tried to watch the film the other day and went, it's fine, but I'm hurt. Rant over.
Lovely.
Oh,
Okay, then.
dear.
Maybe as an out note, then, what do people think Tarantino's horror movie would be about?
Oh, fucking hell. It's
I
like
think he'll
asking-
have some sort of truth, like some.
real
I think
world.
he's
having
going to
it
go
based,
back to
having it
that.
based in some reality, I
Yeah.
think makes
Probably.
it scarier.
I think it'd probably be probably slasher related then,
I
yeah.
think
Yeah,
slasher
could be.
related, yeah. It's
19.
something, it's going to be,
69.
I mean, if he does a horror, it's going to be
If he does a
gory.
remake of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but as a horror.
Ooh,
I don't
no,
know how
he
that would
remakes
work.
Halloween and tries to like outdo Rob Zombie's level of gore.
I'd like it to be closer to like From Dusk Till Dawn.
I haven't seen it.
It's horror, lots of
Horror.
violence, a bit of comedy. in
A
there
bit of
thrown in as
comedy, a little bit ridiculous.
It
I
should
would
be
like-
like Possum.
I don't want it to take itself too seriously
I'd
because I
love-
feel like when horror does that, it kind of ruins it for me. I'd
Right.
like it to be a little bit silly.
Imagine you've done a Dante's Inferno film.
Oh my god.
That would be
Oh,
fucking
wow.
amazing.
You would need that acid dip
I will.
cigarette.
God, yeah.
No,
I know he wants an R-rated Star Trek, which I'm interested by.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right, Tarantino Star Trek debate. Ding ding. Alice versus Richard. Let's go.
Why does Star Trek need to be R-rated?
It's just, it's a Tarantino style. Plus, if I want to see a PG-13 or a lower rating Star Trek, I'll just go see another Star Trek film. Part of the reason why Tarantino would do interesting is because he'd make it so different, and making it R-rated is one way to do that. Plus, a monologue from Spock would just be fucking ace.
I don't want it to have swearing in it.
Swearing
Spock
would be
wouldn't
weird,
swear.
but like
He's
someone
too
gets a laser
polite.
cannon out, shoot someone, their head explodes, just brains and pieces of skulls everywhere. That'd be.
I think it would send the OG Star Trek fans into a bit of a frenzy, seeing all of the
True.
violence.
I mean, Star Wars is kind of giving the middle finger to its fans, and
yeah,
why not
that's
Star
very
Trek?
true.
Yeah.
All of the original Trekkers won't be very happy with it, but
All right then. If you could get Tarantino to take hold of one franchise, what would it be?
Ooh, dirty bastard. Oh.
Shit.
Doctor Who, because he's the only one that could save it at this point.
Interesting. That would be trippy.
Yeah,
But you'd also have
he's
like.
the only one that can save Doctor Who.
Samuel Jackson as Doctor Who.
Yes.
It's like regenerated motherfuckers.
Oh my god, yes.
I think
Tarantino to do the next Mortal Kombat movie.
that would be great. I think maybe because of the monologues in Sherlock, his take on Sherlock Holmes would be interesting. I don't know if it would work, but it would definitely be interesting. I think.
I have a feeling he'd make it very much like the old ones, and he'd probably make it like very, like not even like action based, but very drama.
It'd be
Mystery.
It'd be very mystery, lots of dialogue. It's kind of
Old school Sherlock Holmes.
yeah, kind of ticks a few boxes of Tarantino as well.
Batman.
Ooh,
Ooh.
that'd be an interesting one.
Yeah.
So
Or-
there's
or
I'm
just-
Batman. There's an
yeah.
entire monologue beforehand. That's it. I'm Batman.
Back.
Starts crying. That was the best monologue I've ever had.
What about you?
Ooh, Mortal Kombat would be a good
Yeah,
one for me.
Mortal Kombat would be
Um,
interesting.
I just want
Pokemon.
Yu-Gi-Oh.
The new Detective Pikachu. movie.
Yu-Gi-Oh though.
Yu-Gi-Oh.
Shit.
Tarantino do Yu-Gi-Oh move. No, what would I want?
Hellboy, probably.
Hellboy's a fucking shout.
No,
That would be interesting.
Nah.
You
Then
want him to do a Warriors remake, don't you?
no, don't touch the Warriors. Don't touch it. Actually, no, that would actually be quite interesting if you made it more like the book. Then yeah, I'd say Warriors. That'd be
You're
sick.
sicko.
What?
The book is awful.
Oh yeah, the book is worse.
What's that one book about kids on an island and so you start going crazy?
Oh.
My
Wasp. Fly.
The
Yeah,
Lord
the
of
flies.
Flies.
Imagine
Wasp,
that.
flies,
Wasp,
one
flies.
sec.
I got there in the
Tarantino
end.
version
King of the Wasps.
Lord of Flies.
Yeah.
Really
Tarantino,
fucked
Godzilla.
up. Oh, that would.
Tarantino Sailor
I don't know if it would be. I
Moon.
don't know where
Tarantino
you go
Godzilla
with
would be
that.
interesting. Can't imagine Godzilla giving a monologue.
It's just
You love
all
your
just
monologues.
Rah,
dinosaur-
rah, rah, rah.
dinosaur noises.
Dinosaur noises see people get obliterated by radiation.
Yeah.
Ooh, no, a Tarantino.
Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, fuck. I mean, if that was R-rated, oh my god.
No, I
Go
would.
with Winnie the Pooh's got a honey addiction and he's there shooting
He's
up
just
on
a
honey. Eeyore's constantly trying to kill himself.
Oh my
Take
So
a-
that, no, because the thing is that just sounds like train spotting.
I mean,
Just do train spotting, but they're all in
Train
Dressed up as
spot, train
dressed up as
spotting
Winnie the
would be
Pooh
good.
and,
Quentin Tarantino
Yes.
train spotting.
No,
I don't
Tarantino,
think so.
Tarantino, American Psycho.
That would be very
Wouldn't
good.
it just be American Psycho though?
Yeah, but it'd be a different American Psycho.
Would it?
Yeah.
Would it?
I haven't seen you.
What's he gonna add in? Oh, there's gonna be a bit more blood. Does it matter? There's a lot of it in the original anyway.
Oh, that's a no from Alison, isn't it?
Just
I have a funny feeling you don't like
well, no, it's
American
just when
Psycho.
there's a movie with already a lot of blood and gore, is there really point putting Tarantino?
Yes.
You want to see
Is
Tarantino?
there?
I mean,
I
is there a
think
bit in the book when
Deadpool.
he slices the dog
Deadpool would
open?
be interesting.
It's like
Deadpool
giving.
would
It's
be
like
fun.
saying, "Oh, Tarantino can do the next Shining, so we can put a little bit more blood into an already really, really bloody film."
It's just an elevator.
Stop.
Just makes no sense.
Yeah, no, I don't know where I'd go with that then.
There's so many.
Yeah.
I think.
But yeah, overall consensus rating Hollywood out of 10.
Hollywood out of 10.
Is it the concept or the movie?
The movie.
Okay.
Right.
No, not the
Okay.
concept. You know that capitalist structure.
Easily 8.5 to 9, I think.
Yeah. Reese?
7.
Blasphemous.
I agree with Richard. About an 8.5 to a 9.
Yeah, it was. I gave it 8.5
Yeah.
in my review. I'll stand by my own words.
Where's that review at?
Filmtalk.co.uk.
Just prick.
Right, well, thanks everyone for listening to us talk more babble about interesting things.
Next week we're going to talk wabble, and the week after that, flabble.
Things beginning with apple.
No, it's instead of coming soon out now, whatever it is,
Yeah,
it's babble, wabble, tabble, wabble, fabble.
Can we actually genuinely write a list of everything that rhymes with babble?
Yeah.
And each podcast can open with a new babble, wabble, flabble, dabble, flabble.
And today's babble.
Oh, God.
Well, thanks everyone for listening to Fabble Wabble
Dabble,
sequel podcast
shabble.
I just realised I waved, but no one's fucking there going to see it, are they?
hour. We saw it.
Now
You saw it,
Now
yeah.
they'll know, and whoever's listening will be very happy, and they might wave back.
Yeah. Put subtitles, just Richard waves.
Bye
No.
everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.